The royal house of Varelia had stood untouched for 1,000 years, a dynasty wrapped in crystal traditions, enshrined in diplomacy, and protected by the quiet fear they inspired. For a millennium, their bloodline never spilled outside ceremony. Their alliances were choreographed with precision. Peace was a performance, and Viralia was the stage. Then came Earth. Humans were late to the galactic stage, clumsy, curious, bold to the point of discomfort. They questioned sacred laws. They smiled at omens. They drank things no one else dared ferment. But above all, they survived, not by strength, by refusal. When the Accord Council summoned member worlds to the Citadel for a peace summit, Earth sent diplomats, scientists, and, because of a recent assassination attempt at another summit, security. Staff Sergeant Cade Mercer didn't look like much to the galaxy. Short by Varelian standards, blunt in posture, unimpressive in lineage, a former frontline grunt reassigned after injuries and disciplinary incidents. But that day he was posted 6 meters from the high dais where Princess Kalia of Ren, heir to Varelia, stood draped in ceremonial ice-glass silk. The room glowed with formality. Treaties layered in ancient script hovered midair. The silence before signatures felt thick with centuries of expectation. Then, the glint. A blade flicked from a hidden wrist launcher, cut across the light like a cursed comet. Its arc was flawless, aimed straight for the princess's throat. She did not flinch. Virelian heirs are trained not to fear death. Their calm is their weapon. But someone else moved. Cade saw the flicker too late to draw, too late to call out, but not too late to act. He lunged, a blur of matte armor and instinct. His body intercepted the blade just as it neared its target. The sound it made wasn't cinematic. It was dull, wet. The marble turned red. He didn't fall, not immediately. Pain bloomed slow and hot, but his eyes remained locked on the princess, making sure she was alive. Then came darkness, and when he awoke, days later, in an orbital med chamber surrounded by strangers, he found he was a hero, not by Earth's standards. Earth had no monarchs, no sacred blood oaths, but by Varelian law, what he had done activated something ancient, a life debt. Old magic, they called it, ritual law predating the stars, a system forgotten by most, until now. One life risked to save a royal meant 2 lives bound. And for the first time in 1,000 years, a Varelian princess owed her life to an alien soldier. The blade had flown, the soldier had fallen, the marble was still red, and yet the princess did not move. Princess Kalia of Ren, heir of the House of Varelia, stood as the medics surged in around her. They worked quickly, efficiently, removing the Terran soldier's armor, sealing the wound, injecting regeneratives. Their white gloves turned crimson. She watched every moment in silence. A breath ago, she'd nearly died. She did not tremble, but something behind her ribcage had cracked, quietly, invisibly. Not fear, not grief, something deeper, a rupture in the oldest of protocols. The chamber held its breath. Delegates from 12 systems froze mid-protocol. The Accord counselor from Karun held his pen aloft mid-signature. The Galari diplomat had dropped her ceremonial chain. No one dared move. The Varelian guard took defensive stances, forming a semicircle around their princess. One looked to her for orders. She did not acknowledge them. Instead, Kalia moved. Not away, not toward safety, but toward the Terran, toward the one who had bled for her. She stepped through the blood with bare feet. The silk of her gown caught in it like a flag dipped in war paint. She knelt. Varelians do not kneel, not even to monarchs. Gasps filled the chamber. The silence shattered, but Kalia didn't falter. Her hand extended, hovering just above Cade's chest, where the blood had already begun to dry. And then she spoke, a single sentence, not whispered, not shouted, spoken in the ritual tongue that had not been heard aloud in 4 generations. He is mine by flame and breath, let none contest. The words echoed, not just in sound, but in consequence. An old man at the edge of the dais, a Varelian archivist, dropped his tablet. The Thalrisian diplomat stood up too quickly, nearly knocking over his ceremonial drink. One of the Kyrune twins muttered a prayer, because they knew what she had done, what she had invoked. The right of flame and breath, a Varelian honor bond older than planetary governance, a code born in tribal war eras when life debts meant soul threads. It had not been spoken since the Cold Sun Accord had forbidden its use. It was seen as romantic myth, a cultural fossil, but the princess had declared it, in the full presence of the Accord Council. The bond could not be undone. The moment the phrase was spoken, the rules changed. Cade Mercer, Terran's soldier, had become Varelian bound. His survival meant more than just a medical recovery. It meant the future of the Empire would now pivot around the meaning of one human's life. The room erupted. Diplomats argued. Security raised weapons. Reporters screamed into holocams. "The Terran is now royal consort eligible by right," one shouted. "The right is symbolic. It cannot be enforced," argued another. "It doesn't matter if it's enforceable. She declared it on the record." A judge tried to call for order, but her voice was drowned out. The Accord counselor from Doran 5 demanded immediate cancellation of the treaty. The Kyrune twins declared neutrality pending clarification. The Galari delegation blinked in synchronized panic and left the chamber entirely. And through it all, Kyolia remained kneeling. Her hand still hovered over Cade's chest. The medics looked to her. She gave no sign. Then finally she stood. "I will accompany him to recovery." "Your Highness," began her guard captain. She raised a single finger. He stopped speaking. Then she turned and walked with the Terran medics as they lifted Cade onto a grav stretcher. She followed them from the chamber, barefoot and blood-stained, as the echoes of ancient law trailed behind her like smoke. In the aftermath, the council argued for hours. Was the right of flame and breath still valid? Had a non-Varelian technically invoked it? Could it even be applied to an outsider? Some claimed the entire moment was theater. Others insisted it was treason. But one truth hung in the air like static. Something irreversible had happened. Not a death, but a bond. And no one, not Kalia, not the council, not even Cade Mercer, still unconscious and unaware, could stop what came next. The first thing Cade noticed was the smell, floral, electric, alien. Then the sound, soft chimes, not mechanical, but resonant, like breathing metal. His eyes opened slowly. He expected medbay white. He got living gold. The ceiling above him shimmered with bioluminescent veins that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The walls curved like organic architecture, grown, not built. The bed beneath him wasn't fabric, but some kind of self-adjusting moss, warm, reactive, a cradle. He sat up, winced. The pain in his chest was dull but real. He was alive. The door, if it was a door, whispered open. She entered, Princess Kalia Vren, tall, composed, unreadable, wearing a robe of silver-threaded silk that shifted in color as she moved. Her crown wasn't on her head. It hovered a few inches above it, slowly rotating. Some kind of gravitational ornamentation, Cade guessed. Decorative power. "Staff Sergeant Mercer," she said. Her voice was formal, not cold but deliberate, measured, the way royalty was taught to speak so no word could ever be mistaken. "Present," Cade rasped automatically, then blinked. "I mean, hi." She inclined her head. "You are well?" He looked around. "I mean, I'm not dead, which is surprising, considering I caught a knife with my chest." A twitch, barely visible, flickered at the corner of her mouth. "You caught a blade intended for me," she corrected, "and in doing so, enacted one of our oldest sacred rites." Cade frowned. "Yeah, about that. I was unconscious, so I missed the part where we made any deals." Kelia stepped closer. Not threatening, measured again. Like everything she did was choreographed to the rhythm of an older dance. "You saved the blood of the royal line. In Varelian culture, such an act cannot go unanswered." "Look," Cade said, "I wasn't angling for a medal. It was instinct. I didn't even know who you were. You were just someone about to die." "That," she said softly, "is exactly why it matters." She paused, folded her hands. "You are now my honor mirror." "My what?" In saving my life without obligation, you have bound yourself to me by right, not as servant, not as consort, as reflection. That sounds incredibly poetic and also extremely vague. Kalia did not laugh. She stepped to the side, gesturing toward the far wall. A panel unfolded, a tapestry of glowing glyphs, illustrations, ritual depictions. She pointed to a central image, two figures, one Varelian, one faceless, connected by a single crimson thread tied at the chest. In our law, an honor mirror shares fate with the one they've saved. Cade frowned. Shares fate how? She met his eyes. If I rise, you rise. If I fall, you fall. He blinked. Wait, like, metaphorically? No. Her expression didn't change. If I ascend the throne, you must stand with me. If I marry, you must grant approval. If I die, the right demands your life in equal measure. Silence. Cade rubbed his temples. That's insane. She finally looked away. Not in guilt, more like contemplation. So is jumping in front of a blade for a stranger. That shut him up. For a moment they stood in the quiet. He studied her posture. Perfect, distant, and realized she wasn't just following protocol. She believed in it. This isn't optional, is it? He asked. No, she said. Not for either of us. He nodded slowly, then looked around the room again. Well, at least the moss bed's nice. This time the twitch at her lips lasted a fraction longer. Celia turned to leave. At the door she paused. Your presence here is being protested by 13 minor houses. 5 allies have withdrawn from negotiations. A war nearly reignited. Cade winced. Because I saved someone's life? Number. Because I let you. He looked up. So what happens now? She looked back. Now you learn what it means to share fate with a crown. The door closed behind her. Cade leaned back into the moss, staring at the ceiling veins. What the hell did I get myself into? You bonded with a human? The word was spat across the marble floor of the royal convocation hall like an insult. Lord Varian's voice echoed, sharp, accusing. Dozens of Virelian nobles stood in semicircle formation, ceremonial scepters raised. Gold-threaded robes shifted with tension. The great prism above cast fractured rainbows across faces tight with disbelief. Kalia didn't flinch. I did not bond, she said clearly. The rite was enacted. I honored it. A murmur of disapproval swelled. The rite hasn't been invoked in 300 years, hissed Lady Nissa, and never with an off-worlder. Kalia turned her gaze over the assembly, sharp and unyielding. Then let this be the first. Some drew back. Others held their ground. A few, mostly younger, looked intrigued. But the majority, disgusted. Later away from the court, Cade sat on a low platform in the garden chambers, hands braced behind him, watching iridescent water flow up instead of down. Gravity was different here, beautiful but strange. So, I'm really popular with your people, he muttered. Kalia didn't laugh, but she sat beside him. The high houses are invested in my lineage. My actions reflect on them. They believe I've polluted the succession line. Cade rubbed his face. And there's no way to unpollute it? Her voice lowered. There is one, but it requires you to renounce me publicly. He turned to look at her. What does that mean? Like, denounce you in front of a crowd? Yes, before the council. You would declare me unworthy of your sacrifice. Say I hold no claim to your fate. It would break the mirror. He winced. That sounds harsh. It would also ruin me, she said calmly. No one would trust a heir who inspired shame from the one who saved her. Cade shook his head. So either I live as your cosmic sidekick or tank your reputation forever? There is a third option, she said. He raised an eyebrow. Please say it's cake. You learn. Learn what? My world, my people. The reason the right exists at all. He sighed. So, be your shadow? Not pretend, she corrected. Learn. No, he looked at her. She looked back, unapologetic. All right, he said finally. Teach me. The lessons began the next morning. Language first. The Varelian tongue wasn't just syllables, it was motion. A word for trust involved both sound and the flick of 2 fingers across the sternum. To speak love, one had to breathe differently. Cade struggled. A lot. Kalia was patient. Mostly. Again, she said, correcting his hand. I am doing it. You are insulting my grandmother. Oh, that explains the guards outside looking twitchy. He got better. Culture came next. Rituals, stories, customs. The festival of moats. The burial of empty names. He watched dancers step across memory fields that projected ancestral figures in light. He ate fruit that shimmered blue when it sensed gratitude. He learned to bow not with his head, but his heartbeat, holding breath at the right moment to show respect. Then combat, not warfare, ceremonial dueling, a rite of self-discipline. They trained in circular halls where the gravity shifted with emotion. Kalia wore robes that billowed like smoke. Cade, awkward in ceremonial armor, learned the meaning of movement, of stillness. You don't block, she said once, circling him. You offer no surface. He adjusted his stance. You mean dodge? Number you become absence. He didn't understand. Not then. But over time something shifted. Not romantic, not yet, but resonant. They argued, teased, stood silently on palace balconies watching twin moons rise. In private, they spoke freely. No titles, no ceremony. In public, they stood apart, yet never separate. One evening, as Kalia recited a rite ballad and Cade corrected a verse, she paused. You've begun to remember the lines before I speak them. I guess I'm learning, he said. She looked at him. No, she said. You're listening? And he was. It was supposed to be a ceremonial visit, diplomatic, symbolic. The first Bloom Festival marked the alignment of Virelia's moons and the beginning of the planting season. Dignitaries from 30 systems gathered beneath the spire of renewal, where petals the size of hovercraft drifted through air heavy with music and perfume. But rituals, Cade had learned, often made the perfect battleground. The procession moved slowly down the Aurelian path, a corridor of golden light suspended above flowering terraces. Kalia walked at the front, robed in white, her face unreadable. Cade, in formal armor, still uncomfortable but growing accustomed to the weight, stood 3 paces behind, just to her left. He didn't like crowds. Too many variables. Too many windows overhead. Then a flicker, a pulse across the edge of his vision. He turned. A sound split the air. Not music, not wind. Something screamed. Cade saw the movement, a ripple in the sky, and shouted, "Down!" Too late. Explosions rippled from the upper balconies. Smoke and shards of crystal rained down. Screams scattered the guests like dropped glass. From the chaos emerged 6 figures, dark robes, masks of bone and bronze. Rebel faction insignias glinted. The circle of purity, extremists, anti-human. Cade didn't wait. He moved on instinct, drawing the ceremonial glaive strapped across his back. Not designed for war, but sharp enough. He positioned himself between Kalia and the attackers. She didn't freeze. She stepped beside him. Protocol says you retreat with the heir, he barked. Protocol can burn, she replied. The first attacker lunged. Cade met him with the shaft of the glaive, redirecting the blow, pivoting low, sweeping the legs. The rebel fell. Kalia struck with precision. One motion, disabling without killing. They moved as one. Not perfectly, but aligned. Cade disarmed one with a twist of the glaive and turned in time to take a burn scorch along his side. Pain seared through his ribs. Kalia's eyes flared. She dropped her blade, tackled him out of the way of a second blast, and rolled with him behind a fallen column. You're bleeding, she said. So are you, he replied, wiping red from her brow. Another blast tore through the stone above. He pulled her behind him. She grabbed the glaive from where it had fallen. The battle blurred. Noise, heat, pain, silence, motion, and then reinforcements. The palace guards surged in. The rebels were subdued in seconds. The last tried to flee and vanished in a shimmer. Suicide detonation. Kalia stood over Cade as medics approached. He waved them off. I'm fine, he grunted, staggering to his feet. You took a blast, she snapped. Sit. Later. He turned to her. Her lip bled. Her left sleeve was scorched. Her hands shook. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded, then looked away. You fought beside me. Yeah. You were not assigned to that. I don't do well with watching people die. You fought like a Varelian, he chuckled. Must be all those dueling lessons. They were silent as the wounded were tended. Later, in the medic chamber, as he lay shirtless with a dermal patch across his ribs, she entered without ceremony. You disobeyed protocol, she said. He didn't reply. You should have pulled back. You should have let me take the hit. She looked at him, something unreadable in her gaze. Why? She asked. He frowned. Why what? Why would you bleed for me again? He paused, met her eyes. Because you were bleeding first. The words fell into silence like a dropped stone. Her breath caught. Cade, do you know what you just said? Yeah, it's not exactly Shakespeare, but... She stepped back as if struck. That phrase, she said, it is one of our oldest vows. He blinked. Seriously? Her voice was low. It is said only once, in the rite of sorrow bond, when one binds themselves to another not out of duty, but empathy. He sat up slowly. I didn't mean... I know. That's why it matters. Their eyes held for a long moment. Finally, she spoke again. My people will see this differently now. How? They will see you not as a mirror of honor, but as a shadow of the heart. That sounds poetic. It is. And dangerous. He leaned back with a sigh. So what happens now? She smiled, sad, complicated. Now, we find out what kind of bond we've actually made. Outside the medic wing, nobles whispered. News had spread. The human had fought. The princess had bled. And together, they had spoken ancient words no one dared utter. The Hall of Echoes lived up to its name. Every breath, every footfall, every word carried forever, bouncing against pillars of living stone. It was where decrees were made, where wars were ended, and where the fate of dynasties shifted with a whisper. Kaelia stood alone in its center. The emperor entered from the northern gate. He wore imperial blue, trimmed with starlight silk, the crown of thorns and flame casting shadows across the high ceiling. Flanking him, advisors from every high house, their expressions cold. Cade waited beyond the threshold, told to remain silent, unseen, an observer only. The emperor's voice echoed, sharp. You will end the bond. Kaelia's chin lifted. No. A gasp rippled through the chamber. One of the elder advisors whispered, She defies him. The emperor stepped forward. He is not Varelian. He is not bound by our oaths. His presence compromises your bloodline. He bled beside me, she said. That is the only blood that matters. Poetry doesn't protect a throne, the emperor snapped. Neither does cowardice, she returned, eyes unwavering. He took a slow breath. You forget yourself. I remember more than you think, the emperor gestured. Cade was brought in by ceremonial guard, not restrained, but clearly unwelcome. He bowed respectfully, but without reverence. The emperor turned to him. Human, you have placed yourself between our legacy and its survival. Cade looked to Kaelia, who gave a slight nod. He spoke. I didn't ask for this. I saved a life. That's all. And yet you sit within my daughter's shadow, the emperor said. You share her fate by right and by blood spilled. That cannot stand. Then change the law, Cade said simply. Another wave of shocked murmurs. One advisor hissed, He dares. I dare, Cade said, because I didn't bleed for ceremony. I bled because someone mattered. If that threatens your empire, maybe it's the empire that's weak. Enough, the emperor thundered. Celia stepped between them. You fear what he represents, she said, not because he is human, but because he is proof our laws still have meaning. The emperor's eyes narrowed. You would risk civil fracture for this outsider? I would risk worse, she said, if it meant honoring a truth we claim to value. I can disinherit you. I know. Silence fell like snow. The emperor looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he turned to Cade. If I allowed you to remain, what would you do? I'd protect her, learn from her, stand beside her, just like I did when I didn't know a damn thing about your rules, Cade answered. And now that you do, I'd still take the blade. The emperor closed his eyes briefly. Leave us. Cade hesitated. It's all right, Kalia said. Go. He nodded once and stepped back. When he was gone, the Emperor's voice was quiet. He believes in us. She replied just as softly, more than some of our own. You are making enemies, daughter. Then they were never allies. He gave a low, bitter laugh. You sound like your mother. She would have liked him, Kalia said. The Emperor turned away, looking up toward the mosaics lining the dome, ancient Varelian stories of sacrifice, unity, rebirth. Finally, he sighed. You may keep your bond, but the consequences will be yours to bear. They always were. Later, in the garden where stone met starlight, Cade found her waiting. You okay? He asked. She turned to him. You are not my weakness, she said. You are my witness. The Temple of Flame was older than most stars. Carved from a single vein of twilight stone, it stood beneath Varelia's sacred moon, surrounded by pools that reflected not water, but memory. On this night, they would hold a mirror ceremony, a rite untouched by time, used to sanctify only the most unbreakable bonds. Kalia walked in silence beside Cade. They wore no armor, no crowns, only the ritual robes, midnight black, lined with silver thread, woven from the fibers of whisper vines, a plant said to grow only where truth has been spoken. At the threshold, the keeper of flame bowed. You come to speak your truest selves, she intoned, to burn away falsehood, to see your bond not through eyes but through fear. Kalia nodded. Cade swallowed hard but stepped forward. Inside, the chamber was circular, with no corners to hide in. In its center, the mirror flame, rising from a bowl of obsidian, flickering in colors not found on any spectrum. It did not give heat. It gave memory. The keeper gestured. You will each step into the circle, one at a time. The flame will ask nothing but truth. Speak it, and it will reveal your bond. Kalia moved first. The flame pulsed. Her face remained still, regal, but her hands tightened at her sides. I fear, she began, voice trembling slightly. I fear becoming empress. Gasps echoed. She continued. I fear rising so high I can no longer see the ground. I fear the silence of command. I fear that in serving everyone, I will belong to no one. The flame flared blue. Truth. She stepped back. Cade stepped forward. The flame flickered, like a breath held. He looked at Kalia, then at the flame. I'm scared, he said simply. I'm scared I'll never belong anywhere. He swallowed. I spent half my life being told I was just a soldier, then just a vet, then just another name on a list. And now I'm here, standing beside a woman born of stars, and I don't know if I deserve it, or if I ever will. The flame surged again, bright, clean, blue. Truth. The chamber dimmed. The keeper approached, holding a crystal vial. From it, she poured a single drop of silver soul into the flame. It turned white, then gold, then back to blue. The flame has judged, she said. Your fears were true. Your bond is real. From this moment on, no court, no blade, no death shall sever what you have spoken. Cade exhaled slowly. Kalia stepped forward and took his hand. No ceremony in the gesture. Just choice. In the old stories, this moment would have ended in a kiss. This did not. But something passed between them. Older than romance. Deeper than duty. Recognition. When they exited the temple, the stars seemed brighter. Later that night, alone in the moon garden, Cade asked, Does the flame ever burn red? Kalia nodded. If someone lies. And what happens then? The bond fails. Or worse, the liar burns with it. He blinked. Wait, that could have happened? She smiled. Yes. You might have told me that beforehand. I needed you to mean it, he chuckled. You and your terrifying space fire. She looked at him then. Not as a protector, not as a burden, as something else entirely. I don't want to be alone at the top, she said softly. Don't let me be. He looked up at the stars. Then let's make sure you never stand there alone. The second attempt came under starlight. A gala, moonlit, surrounded by song and silk, then shadows, then blood. Kalia vanished before the third body fell. Cade didn't. He fought until his weapon broke, then his arm. Then they took him. He woke in chains. A stone room, cold, quiet. His ribs hurt. His face was swollen, but he was alive. Across from him stood High Warden Tear, a man of titles and absence of mercy. "You could walk out of here," Tear said, voice like cracked glass. "Say the words, denounce her. Say she is unfit. Say the bond was coercion, that she used you." Cade said nothing. "You'll be free," Tear continued. "Return to your planet. Never see her again. Live." Cade's voice came like rust. "I already chose that. The day I took the blade for her." Tear narrowed his eyes. "You'd die for her?" "I'd live for her. Dying's easy." He was left alone. 3 nights passed. On the 4th, a medic entered, whispered 3 hand signs. Varelian battlefield code. "She lives. But not for long. Find her." They'd underestimated what Kalia had taught him. Cade used his shackles to break the lock. He stole robes from a patrol. He followed tunnels drawn from memory, one she had shown him during a lesson on siege history. Along the way, he passed murals, ancient victories, golden crowns, a painted emperor holding a blade and a flame. He kept moving. The garden chamber was cold. He found her beneath the glass arch, a sanctuary grown from crystal trees. She was slumped against a pillar, blood on her side, eyes dull, not from death, but from loss. "Kalia," he whispered. She looked up. "You're not supposed to be here." "Neither are you." He dropped to his knees, reached for her. She didn't pull away. "They want you to choose," he said. "Crown or blade." "I know." "You can't pick one," he added. "So don't." She frowned faintly. "Explain." "You choose both. You choose the life they fear. The one with me in it." "You're not Varelian." "No," he said. "But I'm yours." She closed her eyes. "There are laws," she whispered. "Then rewrite them." Silence. Then she pulled a shard of crystal from her wound and stood, barely. He caught her when she swayed. "You shouldn't have come," she said again. "You shouldn't have to do this alone." They left through the storm drains. Word spread faster than guards could run. The princess and her bonded had fled. When they emerged into light, hundreds were waiting. Rebels, farmers, soldiers, not united by species, but by hope. Kalia stepped forward, robe torn, voice steady. "I am Kalia Vren, heir to Virelia. I have been attacked by those who fear a world they cannot control, who fear change, who fear love that does not ask permission." She looked at Cade, then the crowd. "I do not choose the crown. I do not choose the blade. I choose something older. I choose my witness." The crowd knelt. Behind them, the towers burned. The day of her coronation dawned with firelight and violet clouds. Drums echoed from mountain towers to sea domes. The streets of Virelia bloomed in banners, some ancient, some new. All bore one symbol now, 2 mirrored flames rising together. Kalia stood before the flame altar, clad in obsidian silk lined with stars. A blade rested on one side of the dais, a crown on the other. She touched neither. Instead, she turned to the crowd. "For generations, we ruled by bloodline and blade. Today, I rule by bond." A roar followed. From every level of the citadel, voices rose, not in command, but in answer. Behind her stood Cade, no longer an outsider, no longer uncertain. He wore Varelian armor tailored to Terran lines, silver and dark red. A sash at his shoulder glowed with the mirror flame. As she turned to face him, the ritual bell tolled. "Name your title," she said. He met her gaze steady. "I am the honor mirror, not ruler, not servant." Reflection. "You stand beside the throne," she said. "Not beneath it." He nodded once. "Always." She held out her hand. He placed his palm against hers. The mirror flame between them leapt higher. Later, in the quiet of the Empress's garden, after the voices had faded, they sat beneath a flowering arc tree. It shimmered in the breeze, petals catching starlight. She unfastened her crown, set it beside her. "You still think this is all insane?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Definitely. But worth it." He didn't answer right away. Just watched the flame hovering in the lantern between them. Blue constant. Then, Would you believe me if I said I'd jump in front of that blade again? She tilted her head. No hesitation? Only if you're still the one standing behind me. Her hand found his. No kiss, no declaration. Just the weight of silence between souls who had bled, burned, and still chose to stand. The flame between them pulsed once. A new chapter opened across the galaxy. Virelia passed new laws, ones written in the language of choice. Other cultures followed. Ceremonial bonds, once restricted by species, now crossed worlds. Children learned the tale of the human who became the mirror of a crown, not by force, not by destiny, but by the choice to protect a stranger and be changed forever.